Hello and welcome back for these Koine Greek explainer videos. This video is going to be about the definite article and about the basic form of nouns. We're going to look at the various forms the definite article comes in, the word that generally is translated as the, and use a few noun examples to look at the main forms that we will find them. There's also a practice video to go with this session that's on case and definite articles. And there's also a vocabulary video that goes with it. I'll mention those at the end. A lot of Greek courses start here, once you've done the alphabet, with the definite article because it's pretty important. It will denote the gender. Now remember, that is about the grammatical gender, not the actual gender of who you're talking about. It's not even always a person. Even nouns can be objects and places as well. It's about which order within the grammar they are, whether they're a masculine noun, a feminine noun, or a neuter noun. It's also going to give you the number, whether it's singular or plural, and the case, whether it's nominative, vocative, accusative, genitive, or dative. There's a separate video explaining those cases, but just a quick refresher. Nominative is the main noun doing the verb. Accusative is the object of that verb, usually, and the secondary noun in the sentence. The dative is the indirect object. Genitive is where possession or association is involved, and the vocative is usually used to address somebody in the Bible. Very rare is used to address God or Jesus. Remember also that the definite article is going to agree with the noun, and that's important because sometimes the noun is used once in a paragraph, and subsequently when it comes back into sentences that follow, you will only see the definite article. Some nouns are also irregular and won't have the normal ending. So to understand which part of the sentence they are, whether they're nominative or accusative or genitive or whatever, you have to look at the definite article. Also, sometimes it's the other way around, where the noun appears on its own without the definite article. The definite article is usually translated as the. It occasionally, something like that or the one or that one is a more suitable translation, but so it's not quite as simple as saying it is the, but that is the most basic translation of the definite article. So let's start with the feminine definite article in the singular. There's no difference here between nominative and vocative. You would just work out that it's vocative if it's addressing somebody in a way that would make it a vocative. Hey for the vocative again. Tain for the accusative. Tastes for the genitive. Note that circumflex over the eta. That's often a way to spot these genitives. And te in the dative. The iota subscript is a good way to spot the dative. That will come back when you see dative singular. It's also going to be used in participles, but again in the dative case. So that iota subscript is a good one to spot. Now do remember that the definite article for feminine singular is hey for both nominative and vocative. If it has a soft breathing and an accent on, as you see on the screen, both either a grave or an acute accent, and is pronounced a, it is a different word. The breathing is actually part of the spelling, so it looks the same. And this is a mistake that's easy to make if you treat the language just simply as something you read. But if you say it out loud, obviously hey and a sound different. That's one of the reasons why I think it's very important when we are practicing Koine Greek to actually say it, speak it, read it out loud as part of our learning, and that will also help you to remember. Now in this case, it doesn't actually matter whether it's a grave accent or an acute. That doesn't actually make any difference. It is either. The word is either. So a means either, and hey, usually translated as the, is the definite article in the feminine nominative singular or feminine vocative singular. I'm going to make a separate video on how to put these accents and breathings on and how to use Greek keyboards, but if you're interested, it was done by putting an equal sign and then H for eta to get the soft breathing with a grave accent, and a forward slash with the H to get a soft breathing with an acute accent over the eta. And yes, it took me a really annoyingly long time to find that. And this sort of thing will happen again and again, by the way. You think you've learnt a word just because you've learnt how to spell it, but actually then along comes an accent or a breathing sound which changes it completely. And they can change it completely. Remember, the breathing is part of the spelling of the word, but even just the inclusion of an accent could change the emphasis of a word. So you do have to keep paying attention to those as much as you do the letters. It's really annoying, and I think 2,000 years ago they put them there just to annoy us, really. I don't know. But let's just move on to those feminine plurals, the definite article in its plural form. You have no difference between the nominative and the vocative. I. It's got a hard breathing, so it becomes high, as in the English word high, opposite of low. High. Accusative is tas. Genitive, tone. Keep a lookout for that omega nu ending on words, on nouns and on participles, because that is often a possessive, that omega with a circumflex over top. Sounds like the English word own, and that's how I remembered it, because it's to own something, when we own something, and it's plural. And tice for a dative noun, that's the indirect object, the third noun usually in a sentence, or in the third position. There could be more than three, but the third position noun. Now here we have on screen the masculine definite article as well. We've got ho in the nominative. Now in the masculine singular is where we sometimes see the difference in the vocative, and it becomes o, soft breathing, o with omega, and this is where we get the phrase "O Lord, my God," because it is just o, and it nearly always is going to be before a word like Lord or God or Jesus. Otherwise, the vocative in the neuter and the feminine is just conveyed by the sense of the sentence, rather than being a specific definite article and word ending in its own. The accusative is ton. The genitive is to, with a circumflex over the upsilon, and where you spot that omicron upsilon with a circumflex, that's a sign of the possessive in the singular. And toe, the dative, with the iota subscript. Again, that iota subscript will show you that it is a dative. If we add the plural, you've got oi for both the nominative and the vocative, tous for the accusative, to, again, the genitive, whether it's singular or plural is the same, and tois for the dative, with the circumflex accent over the iota. And again, that omicron, iota, sigma is common for dative nouns. You'll see that quite a bit. The ois sound, if you're saying it out loud, will show you that it is in the dative position. With the neuter definite article, remember again, the nominative and vocative will look the same. To. Accusative is also to. And the genitive and dative look like the masculine. You've got to and toe. Adding the plural, we have ta for nominative, vocative, or accusative. Ta. And again, the genitive and dative look like they do in the masculine. You've got tone. Remember, own, as in to own something. We own something in English. good way to remember the genitive, it's possessive, and tois in the dative. So let's take a look at how they look with the noun. Remember, the noun and the definite article agree. So basically, the definite article is going to be the ending of the noun. Hey, agape is your nominative or vocative. Tain, agapein. Tes, agapes. Te, agape with the iota subscript in the dative. I becomes high because it's got a hard breathing on the iota. High, agapai for both nominative and vocative. Tas, agapas for accusative. Tone, agapone for genitive. Tais, agapis for dative. That's using the word agape, love, as an example. Here in the masculine, we're going to use the word logos, which usually means word in the Bible. So you've got hot logos for nominative. This is a very common ending and is often regarded as the root form of the word, certainly in masculine. With the omicron sigma on the end, you'll hear that quite a lot in Greek names. Ho loga. Now that epsilon ending, it's more common in modern Greek, but in Koine Greek and ancient Greek, that is your sign of the vocative, used for addressing God, Jesus, Son of God, Lord, words like that. So, o loga. Ton logon, tu legu for genitive, and to logo with the iota subscript for dative. And as that goes into the plural, remember we have a hard breathing here, so hoi logoi for nominative and vocative. Tous logus for accusative. Tu logu, same as the singular, for genitive. And tois logois for dative plural. Into the neuter, I'm changing the colours here because colour coding things should help us to memorise things, by the way. So into the neuter we've got the word for work, ergon. Nominative, vocative and accusative all look the same in both singular and plural. So you've got ergon, ergon, ogwa, ergon, to ergon for those three. Tu ergu in the genitive, to ergo in the dative. Ta erga, plural for nominative, vocative and accusative. Tone ergon, again that own sound for the genitive. And tois ergois for the dative. Similar endings in genitive and dative to the masculine. Now those were the regular forms of nouns, but there are quite a lot of irregular nouns in Greek, and a lot of names are irregular in their endings. So take a look at the definite article, as I said, because that will often give you the case that it is in, and those definite articles remain the same. It's the noun endings that are going to change in your irregular nouns. This is often because the word has come in from another language. The example here is tis. Tis, or tis for the vocative, so it'd be hot tis if it was masculine. Tina for the accusative. Tinos if it is genitive, so you'd recognize it by the definite article to. And tini for dative. And this word tis, by the way, is who or which or what. It's actually a pronoun, but I use it in this case because it's a good and commonly used example of how nouns and pronouns have this irregular shape to them. A lot of them have an iota in them towards the end. In the plural, we'll go to tines for nominative and vocative. Tinas for accusative. Tinone, again that own sound stays in there for the genitive plural. And tissin, if it's in the dative, you'll use a nu on the end if the next word begins with a vowel. But if the next word begins with a consonant, it will be tissy. Now, if that went into a neuter situation where you're talking about an object, not a person, then you would find that actually it would be, again, very similar. It's the definite article that would tell you that it's neuter and not masculine. The first few forms of it slightly different there. You've got ti instead of tis and tinner, but ti is the neuter version. Ti for nominative, vocative, accusative. Tinos again for genitive. Tini again for dative. And tina for the plural, with tinone and tissin being the same as the masculine examples for genitive and dative plural. So if I just bring in those definite articles, you'll see that even though the noun is irregular, the definite articles stay the same in the masculine, feminine and the neuter. You'll note that some of these are the same. So in the singular, genitive and dative are the same in masculine and neuter. I wouldn't worry about things like that too much. It either really just doesn't matter in terms of translation very often, or it will be obvious if it is masculine or feminine, if it needs to be because the person is a man or a woman. So to and toe are the same in neuter and masculine, and to comes up again in plural for masculine genitive, and tois, again you can't tell whether it's a neuter or a masculine, it's the same. Tone, the genitive feminine plural, is the same as the neuter plural for genitive as well, both tone. So I'm going to bring up some examples from the first chapter of John's Gospel. Do have your pause button ready so you can stop and have a think about this and add the pauses that you need to give you thinking time. So the first sentence is en arche ein hologos kai hologos epros ton theon, which means in the beginning was the Word and the Word was with God. Now can you tell which of those is nominative, which of those nouns is accusative and which is dative? Don't be confused by the order that they came in. Remember, the endings of the words will tell you. So we have arche for beginning, logos is word, and theon is God. Hit pause now to give yourself some thinking time. So in that example, the nominative was actually logos. That's the main noun in the sentence. And where we say en arche ein hologos, ein is the verb to be, so that verb is referring to the logos, to the word. So logos is nominative. Theon is the object then, because it then says pros ton theon, which very literally means towards God. In this situation we translate it as with God, so that the Word was with God. God is therefore in the accusative and therefore takes the on sound, theon, with omicron nu. Arche was the dative, and remember this iota subscript shows you what the dative is. Let's have a go at spotting a vocative where it actually stands out. As I said, it often doesn't, but there's an example on the page of one that does. So we have the nouns scotia, which means darkness, kuri, which means Lord, anthropone, which may be translated as men or people, and zoe, which we get the word zoo or zoology or the name Zoe from, zoe, meaning life. So one of these nouns is in the vocative case, and I've given you a phonic way of pronouncing those words there so you can see how to pronounce them as well. If you need some time to think again, hit the pause button now. And here's the answer, koine. It's kind of fairly obvious in this situation because the vocative is addressing somebody, and as I said, normally in scripture it's going to be somebody like God or Jesus, or before the word Lord, and it takes that distinctive epsilon ending, which, although that's common in modern Greek, is not in Koine Greek, and is distinctive there as a noun ending. It's distinctive only on the vocative. Koine, you may recognize, it becomes Kyrie in Latin, and you may recognize that from the Kyrie eleison, that famous song, and liturgy means Lord have mercy. So hopefully that will be an easy one to remember, but it's where we get the phrase O Lord, Kyrie, the same in Latin. But which one of these could be a genitive? Remember, that means a possessive word. Again, hit your pause button if you need some extra time to think. And well done if you got it. It is anthropone. Remember that own sound at the end, like the English word to own something. I own, we own a house, or something like that. Anthropone. There's your sign of the genitive at the end of the word own. Because there are so many resources out there now on smartphones, online, in apps, in software and stuff like that, it's really up to you how much time you spend on learning vocab. Obviously, if you want to be able to sit down and read the Bible for yourself, then you're going to need to know some vocabulary. But if all you want is enough that you can access the apps and the technology to do the parsing for you and things like that, then you're obviously not going to need to spend so much time on it. But we do need to do a little bit so that we can use those words as an example and use them in our learning. So I'm going to put together some vocab videos. They're going to be the ones with the sort of purpley berry coloured background theme, and I'm going to start by putting up the words from John chapter 1. And John's Gospel and 1 John, the letter, are good places to start because the Greek is quite basic, very well structured and good to learn from. So do check out that video for those words. As well as the purple vocab playlist, there is a green playlist called Practice Plus. That is to go with any of these explainer videos to practice what you've learned in them. So in this case, I'm putting up the Lord's Prayer and going through it, specifically looking at the nouns to see what case they are in. That video is designed to go alongside this one and to complement that as well. So do have a look at that to do a bit of practice. And there's some other practice suggestions within that video that you can do at home for yourselves as well. So there we go, that is our introduction to nouns and to their cases: nominative, vocative, accusative, genitive and dative. Now, if you're a bit unsure about what those terms mean, do look back over the video on structure. It's important to understand these principles of grammar in English before we start to learn them in Greek. But I hope you have found this video helpful. If you've got any comments, do put them in the comments section below. Do click subscribe if you'd like to get any updates for future videos posted. Otherwise, thanks for coming, thanks for watching, goodbye and God bless.